Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah, and today we're talking boundaries. What are they? Why are they so hard to set? And how can we actually maintain them in real life? So, you're up for a good coaching session. Let's begin with some questions. Have you ever said yes when you really want to say no to someone? Mm-hmm. And let me also ask you, have you ever avoided saying how you truly feel or what you truly need to avoid disappointing someone? Yeah, we're probably all in the same boat, right? We all have those experiences. And honestly, I think it's just because most of us never really learned about boundary setting. And then we grow up and we end up having no boundaries or few boundaries, and we end up suffering from that. So let's dive in and talk about what boundaries actually are. So I want to read you some of my favorite definitions of boundaries. The first one is from Brene Brown, of course. So much to learn from her, so much wisdom. And she said, setting boundaries is making clear what's okay and what's not, and why boundaries are so important is because they are a prerequisite for compassion. Whew, big words, huh? Let me give you another one. It comes from my favorite author, Liz Gilbert. And she said, a boundary is a golden circle that you draw around things that matter to you. And you say, everything inside that circle is sacred. And I love that image, and I use it so often in my own life because I imagine this golden energetic circle around myself. And then it helps me also perceive when someone tries to break through that circle or overstepped. And I know, okay, a boundary has been crossed. That's why I feel angry or sad or, all the warning emotions that tell us that a boundary has been crossed. So that was Liz Gilbert. And the last one I want to share with you is from Tara Brach, an amazing mindfulness and meditation teacher that I admire a lot. And she said, the boundary to what we can accept is the boundary to our freedom. I'm going to read that again for you. The boundary that we can accept is the boundary to our freedom. Which means when, at least to me, right, when someone oversteps that boundary, we are sacrificing our freedom. And then we actually feel that intensely. And the boundary that we can accept is the boundary in which we feel free. So that's the what part, understanding, reflecting more deeply on what boundaries actually are. And I can tell you so many stories and examples from my own life, from my coaching clients, just to give you some context. For instance, a family member makes a probably unconscious but kind of painful comment about your appearance or about your partner, and they do it in a kind of by the way kind of way, and you just sit there and you feel the emotional impact of those words, and they just keep on talking. They don't even notice how that hit you. And often I tended to feel helpless in those moments. And having some sentences at the tip of your tongue that help you communicate the boundary is just so helpful. We'll talk about that in a moment. Another example is a family member wants to join you on holiday, and you just really don't feel like doing that. But you feel the pressure of saying yes, and of course you don't want to disappoint them, right? But what do? Do you just keep quiet and nod and say yes, and then you end up going on holiday that you really wanted to spend with yourself or with another person? My God, the amount of resentment we can accumulate by not having boundaries. Yeah, it's truly amazing. So just some examples, or communicating a boundary with your romantic partner, because there's always something new, no matter how long we know someone or how long we spend life with a person. There might be new situations where boundaries show up that we didn't know were there before. And then to just be able to feel that boundary and communicate that and say, hey, this was a boundary crossed for me. And this is why this is important to me. And I would hope that in the future you are more mindful now that you know that this boundary exists for me. So these are all examples, right? And now let's talk about why they're so difficult to set. Honestly, I think it digs down so deeply to our sense of self worth. If I set that boundary, will this person still love me? Will this person still accept me? And because it touches on our deep sense of self worth, there's such a huge surge of anxiety coming up when it comes to us needing to set boundaries. So I think that's one part, the emotional part. And the other part is that we just weren't taught the tools. We just weren't taught the sensitivity of noticing when a boundary has been crossed. We might just wonder why we feel angry. Or we don't even wonder, we are just angry and take that out on something else, on ourselves, on someone else. But maybe the anger is just a sign, just an information that there was a boundary crossing. And once we understand that and we honor our emotion as a warning sign, we can go deeper and ask ourselves, what value, what boundary was crossed? And that awareness, that clarity within ourselves, that understanding can not only bring about a lot of compassion for ourselves, it also allows us to then find the clarity and the words to communicate it with other people. And that's the last part of this mini coaching session, which I think is so important because it really empowers us to set boundaries with others. Because having the clarity within yourself is great. And sometimes just, with body language, we can also communicate boundaries, but chances are we need the words. So here's some examples that I find excellent and that I've been using in my own life. I'm uncomfortable with what you just said. I hear you, and I truly need to be by myself right now. I wish I could, but I can't. Maybe next time. I can't attend, but I really appreciate the invitation. No, thank you. Thanks, but I'm not interested. I can't do XYZ, but I am open to this other thing. And so just let that sink in. It doesn't have to be so complicated, and we really don't need to fall into explaining ourselves, right? Because that happens too. We are setting a boundary, but then we get nervous and we feel afraid of disappointing other people, and then we go into complete explanation and justifying mode. Yeah, that doesn't really help. So those short, sweet sentences coming from an inner place of love and clarity, in my experience, those are the best way to set boundaries, and they are also best received by the other person. And so, yes, of course, there is a sense of discomfort that we're going through when we say things like that and when we set boundaries as clearly as that. There will be a little discomfort, most likely. But that's okay. That's really okay. And it's an opportunity for us to practice being with this discomfort. And it will get easier over time. And we gain so much self-trust in the process because every time we set a boundary from a place of inner love and clarity, we actually commit to ourselves, to our authenticity. And it's ultimately an act of self love.